started working on 5 years ago after leaving Rovio is tunnel to connect Helsinki and Tallinn. So it's a 15 billion euro project to make the two capital cities one metropolitan area. Again, I would kind of like refer to that as boring infrastructure, but because the really interesting thing and why we are doing this is a continuation of what I've been working on pretty much like almost like I would say all my life, is really to kind of like create this higher talent density, bring people together. And if you look at what we have achieved with games here in Finland, we have the highest density of studios, game developers, and because of that, Rovio, Supercell, Small Giant, Seriously, and so on and so on, many successful games companies. And it's a little bit like, if you go to LA and then you stop a random person at the local Starbucks and you ask him or her that, okay, why don't you tell me about your movie? And then they will start telling you that, oh, it's, like this, and I've been working on the script for a few years, and I think that Brad Pitt would be like amazing in the lead role. And, so everybody in LA, and
Hollywood. Everybody in LA is there for Hollywood. Yes,
yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Even your waiter, even the girl at Starbucks, she's an aspiring actor who works at Starbucks until she's discovered. That's LA.
And in Helsinki, you stop, the random person at Starbucks and you ask him or her that, okay, tell me about your game. And then they will start telling you that, it's, it's a match 3 with RPG elements and, the characters are like this and, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to monetize by, doing amazing kind of like new things around ads or I don't know. But anyway, so everybody has like a games idea or wants to be in games. And so the talent density is very important. So what we're doing now with this Finest Bay Area development is that we're creating gravity. We want to attract more talent to the Finest Bay Area, so to the Helsinki, Tallinn area, and actually you see Stockholm there, and also behind my back St. Petersburg. So it's like everything around this finest Bay Area. And of course, there are many successful Bay areas. There's the San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley, you might have heard about that. Seattle Bay Area, Microsoft, Amazon. You have Tokyo Bay Area. In China, you have the Greater Bay Area, the Hong Kong, Macau, Shenzhen, Guangzhou area.
Where I've lived many years. These were my formative years, correct. And you don't want to call it Silicon anything, right? Because I remember back in the day you were hating on people calling everything Silicon.
But I think that I worked a lot in Silicon Valley, and it's a great place, great source of inspiration, but it's already there. So you can only lead by creating something new. You can't lead by following, you can't lead by copying. So the Silicon Valley, fantastic. I met with Bill and Dave when they were still like around. So, Bill Hewlett, Dave Packard, they started HP in their garage in Palo Alto, 1939. But again, that's like long time and before my time. But anyway, I always say that they were fantastic entrepreneurs because not only did they start HP, they started the whole Silicon Valley. So Silicon Valley wasn't started by Google, Facebook, Twitter, Apple, one of these newcomers, but actually Bill and Dave in their garage, and then after that Intel happened and Apple happened, and now of course Facebook, Google, Uber, all of these guys, Airbnb, and long list of success stories. And actually then when you start looking at what is happening here in the Finest Bay Area, look at our friends in Estonia, 1.3 million people. They have created 7 unicorns, and the latest and greatest success story, Wise, formerly known as TransferWise, they just listed in London, and the market cap is over 10 billion. So they became one of the many decacorns here in the Finest Bay Area. Supercell being the first one, and I think that looking at Estonia, 7 unicorns for a population of 1.3 million people. That's like a world record. I was in China, in Beijing, before the pandemic, and I was listening to talk by a professor, I think from Tsinghua University, who was saying that China has 200 unicorns and super successful. But then if you do the math, China 1.4 billion people, 200 unicorns, meaning that you need 7 million people to create a unicorn in China, while our friends in Estonia, roughly 200,000 people to create a unicorn. So the finest Bay Area is actually the most successful area when it comes to unicorn creation, and startup activity anywhere on the planet. So more successful than Silicon Valley or China if you measure this like per capita. And I think that's again why we're building the tunnel. It's just to create even more of that, and basically creating one unified metropolitan area out of the Helsinki, Tallinn, capital cities with 2 million, then soon to be 3 million people. And then you mentioned that I talk about like also this, heart of Eurasia. So we're right here in the middle of the action. We have Europe on one side, China, Japan, India right next door. So we're the closest neighbor of Asia here in Europe. So in normal, like non-pandemic times, I could get on a plane in Helsinki, and 7 hours later I'm in Beijing, 8 hours later I'm in Shanghai, and 9 hours Tokyo, 6 hours Delhi. So very, very close proximity to most of the Asian capitals, which makes it kind of like a very good place to be if you want to do business in all of Europe, all of Asia. That's where like 5 billion people, 70% of the world's population lives. So it's kind of like a massive opportunity from that perspective as well.
Yeah, and obviously what I said about the Silicon Valley, we love the Silicon Valley,
of course,
but it's going back to what you say, stand out from the crowd. Don't try to copy it. Don't try to be the Silicon Valley of this place on the map. And that's why you call slush, because there's slush on the ground. It's not sunny. It's not LA. Let's do it in November while it's cold, and it's Finland. You have this clear-spirited view of brands. And I really like what you said. I would agree with you that in the last 10 years, Helsinki, Tallinn has become the vibrant, new, growing tech ecosystem of our generation. I used to joke a few years ago, Helsinki is the new Tokyo. And obviously the culture is completely different of Japan, and in architecturally, visually, it's completely different. But what I meant by that is that I was seeing all my friends migrate to Helsinki to work in video games, where the decades before they were migrating to Tokyo, because this is where the innovations in gaming was. And actually Helsinki right now reminds me a bit of Brussels in the 60s, when after Tintin and Smurfs, everybody in Brussels started to have their comic books, and came a generation of Asterix, all that from a tiny country, and IPs and brands that are still alive today. And I think in Helsinki the same happened. First Nokia with the first mobile game, Snake, and then the competitions that you run, and it was not enough maybe to be very successful, but it was enough to pay people and run companies. And then Rovio, Supercell, and then the ex-Rovio and the ex-Supercell will go out and start their own companies. And now that's it. If you want to have neighbors who know what they're talking about, you go to Helsinki in video games, whether you finish or not. They're come from all over the world now, right?
Yeah, and actually, and we're now, on that note also, what we're like working a lot on kind of like then enabling the next generation. And exactly you said, I mean, a lot of former Rovio and Supercell and a lot of people who basically grew up in various companies, they're now starting their own, and that's why there's a very healthy kind of like ecosystem with lots of kind of like small studios, slightly bigger studios, and it's not just then kind of like the game studios, but it's the whole ecosystem around supporting, like if you want to know about
the capital,
advertising, or the analytics, or now a lot of work around AI and games, and all of that. So it's a very, very healthy ecosystem.